Okay, here we go. Boomers against Zoomers. There seems to be a lot of tension between these two generations in Canada. I'm a Zoomer, and there are Zoomers blaming the Boomers for the high cost of living, specifically real estate prices. Boomers were able to afford a home off of one income, maybe buy a cottage, etc. While Boomers are saying Zoomers should just work harder. The life satisfaction of Canadians under the age of 35 is completely falling off of a cliff, and these two groups are voting completely differently as well. So let's get into why I think this is happening. So to set the stage here, this is Boomer Steve. He's saying, I'm so tired of hearing our grandparents could buy a house on one salary, but now we can't even afford rent on two. So he's saying that's what Zoomers are saying to him. And he's saying, yeah, because grandma wasn't blowing half her paycheck on $12 iced coffee and avocado toast. That's why. So Steve's saying, Zoomers, stop buying avocado toast and then you'll be good. You can afford a home. And then I got Grok to help pull some of these headlines, Boomers against Zoomers, why Canada's housing crisis is a generational war. This was a poll from CBC. Poll 68% of Gen Z says Boomers had it easy with housing and jobs. Boomers fire back. We worked harder. Generational war. And that's brought us here. So you have the Boomers voting for the Liberals, while every other age group in Canada seems to be favoring the Conservatives. And the average life satisfaction of Canadians under the age of 35 has completely fallen off of a cliff since 2005. And I don't think this is really any surprise. Everyone just can feel the cost of living when you go to the grocery store, when you look at the price of a home. And that just brings me to this chart here, which is the average house price versus salary in Toronto. So house prices have absolutely exploded while incomes have nowhere near kept up. So affordability for young Canadians has just gotten more and more difficult over time. So the average age of a first-time homebuyer in Canada in the 70s was late 20s, 27 to 29. Now the average age of a first-time homebuyer is all the way up to 40, which is pretty crazy. So I wanted to do some digging on the data here. So the average Toronto home in 2000 was $240,000. Today, the average home is $1 million. The average Toronto income in 2000 was $36,000. And today, the average income is $62,000. Incomes are up 72%, while homes are up a whopping 317%. So something's obviously screwed up here. And it's not just housing prices, the cost of food. If you feel like you need to take out a loan when you buy steaks at the grocery store. I saw a report the other day saying that Canadians are buying less beef and substituting with chicken because it's cheaper. But now this came out this week from the food professor. Chicken prices are set to rise in the coming months. Canada simply isn't producing enough birds to meet the demand. And then I wanted to look at just kind of fast food, like the cheapest, crappiest burger you can buy. What's the price of a Big Mac? So in 1990, the Big Mac was $2.20. Today it's $8 or more. So the worst burger you can buy from a health perspective, and kind of the cheapest burger you're going to find is $4, has gone up 4% a year since 1990. That's double the official inflation rate. And when you kind of look back over all these years and everything that's gone up, house prices, the cost of living, tuition that I'm going to get into next, nothing's going up at the official 2% inflation rate. So tuition costs have 4x'd since 1990, and rent around campus exceeds tuition. So that's a Western University where I was. Shout out to Steele Street. Rent per room is about $1,000 a room, $900 to $1,000 a room in London, Ontario. The same for McMaster, the same for Guelph. So not only has tuition gone up 4 times since 1990, but the cost to rent around campus actually exceeds the tuition cost. So young Canadians have to take out more debt to pay for school, more than they ever did before. And then I thought this was interesting, looking at Canada's GDP. So Canada still has the worst real GDP per capita after Luxembourg. So what that means is some people will say Canada's GDP is growing, so the economy is healthy, the economy is good. The GDP number has increased, which it has, but GDP per capita or GDP per person has stayed flat or actually gone negative. And the best way for me to explain this is just with this pizza example. You have pizza number 1, 8 slices, and a family of 4. So everyone in that family gets 2 slices of pizza. A couple years later, the pizza has grown. You get a bigger pizza, and now you have 10 slices. But also, there's more people in the family, so you have 6 people. So you have a bigger pizza, but now you're actually getting less than what you were getting before with the smaller pizza. So the size of the pizza has grown, but you're actually reaping less of the benefit of that. And that's kind of what's happening today with Canada's GDP. And when Canada's GDP per capita is flat like that, it just means there's less good jobs in the country, less high-paying jobs in the country. Your dollars don't go as far. You can feel it when you're at the grocery store. So that's the situation Canada's in. And the cause of some of that has just been irresponsible immigration, too many people in the country too fast without thinking about jobs, healthcare, infrastructure. And then you have young Canadians competing with more people for their first job. So now you have youth unemployment rate at a 32-year high. And immigration obviously isn't the only factor here, but it definitely is a factor. And you have a new headwind, which is companies that have adopted AI aren't hiring fewer senior employees, but they have cut back on hiring junior ones. And this was an interesting study Stanford put together on the effects of AI in employment. And you can see headcount over time by age group for software developers since ChatGPT launched. The people most affected is people early in the career, from 22 years old to 25 years old. And they pretty much say this is because AI is able to do a lot of the beginner jobs, and maybe instead of hiring 5 junior analysts to get a job done, you might only need 2 junior analysts to get the job done, plus AI. So I think AI in the workplace, specifically white collar jobs, is hurting that entry level job more than it is some of the, more advanced experience roles. And we'll see how that changes going forward. 58% of students who graduated within the past year are still looking for a job or fortune. More youth unemployment rate numbers. Okay, and a trend I don't think enough people are talking about is this. This is a chart of GTA home prices against Canada's M2 money supply growth. Now, obviously, the price of a Toronto home and the amount of dollars in Canada's economy is completely different, but the trend is clear. As Canada prints more money and devalues our currency, these asset prices go higher, just like Toronto homes. And this trend makes a lot more sense and is a lot more clear. And using the money supply growth is a much better way to look at inflation, in my opinion, than government's made up basket of goods, the CPI, because here you can see that there's much more of a trend, and there's much more of a correlation between Canada's money supply and home prices. And as Canada prints more dollars, it devalues everyone else's dollars. So as more money is printed into the system, the purchasing power of our dollars lose value. There's more money in the system, more money is fighting for the same amount of goods and services, those prices go up. And I think that's kind of the second tax that nobody's talking about. That's a big problem, and it's not getting as much attention as I think it should be. So when more dollars are printed into the system, these dollars flow into assets, pushing asset prices higher, while incomes generally stay flat. They don't get to benefit from the new money coming to the system because this new money is forced into assets, widening the gap between asset owners and income earners. And this was a good way to look at it. So the average cost of a home in Canada in 1975 was $50,000, adjusted for inflation according to the Bank of Canada on their website. That should be $280,000. But the average cost of a home is not $280,000, it's $700,000. So the CPI inflation rate doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. The cost of everything we've talked about here is going up at more than 2 to 3% a year. And this is like the debasement of our currency is a hidden tax on all Canadians that I don't think enough people are talking about. And again, it just brought us to where we are today, where affordability is so difficult for young Canadians because money printing has driven these asset prices higher while incomes generally stay flat, kind of wiping out the middle class. And a lot of people like to talk about the Cantillon effect. The Cantillon effect talks about how when new money is printed, it goes to asset owners and not to income earners. So the central bank creates these new dollars. It goes to the regional banks. It is then people can take out loans. They can invest this money. But if you don't already own assets, it's difficult for you to benefit from this freshly printed money that's going into assets. So the assets go higher while incomes generally stay flat or go up more similar to the CPI rate. And what's fueled this over the years is just low rates. The cost to borrow money has been super cheap from 2008 on to 2022. Rates have gone up a little bit since then. And that's really been the last couple of decades with these low rates has allowed for more money printing and the financialization of real estate. And at the end of the day, I think this is the key takeaway that not enough people are talking about. Everything else we talked about earlier in the video is a factor into this, but I think money printing at the end of the day drives home prices higher, pumping boomers' bags, while income earners lose purchasing power, leaving Zoomers further behind. And I do think it's a tale of two economies, and we just are seeing less of a middle class here in Canada. So you have the asset owners who benefit from all this money printing, the rich get richer, and income earners who are trying to buy assets but can't save to buy a house because prices are running away from them are hurt. And it's difficult when there's such a gap between asset owners and income earners. It's difficult for the income earner to pull enough capital together to invest it in something like the S&P 500 and for it to actually make a difference for them. And then I think this tweet summed it up kind of nicely. Young Zoomers are basically gambling with what little net worth they have on the off chance they turn it into millions. Even if they end up losing it all, they perceive the alternative as unacceptable. This is why meme stocks are ripping its game theory. And I think it's kind of the truth. Zoomers are like, it's so difficult to afford a home in Canada. I might as well take whatever I have and gamble it on some meme coins and try to hit a 10 bagger than really save, because it just seems like the cost of these assets are running away from me. So at the end of the day, I think boomers were able to benefit from low rates and money printing, and their bags were pumped. And they're sitting where they are today, not affected by anything else going on in the economy because they have all this equity in their home, while Zoomers don't have equity in homes, and the income to price ratio is so out of whack that it's difficult. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think there's big opportunity for Zoomers in Bitcoin. Boomers got real estate for cheap. Zoomers get Bitcoin for cheap. Yes, still cheap. I'm going to make a video on that. I think the trades are going to do well, like electricians, plumbers, etc. And then I think if you can use AI to your advantage, make yourself more productive, as some boomers might not accept the new technology, I think there will be space and job availability for Zoomers who can use these tools and make themselves more productive in the workplace. Even though it seems like AI is starting to eat some white collar jobs, I do think there's opportunity there. So I don't think it's all like doomsday. I think there's opportunity for Zoomers, but I think it's important to understand what type of economy you're living in. And if you understand what's happening in the economy, I think you can make a plan for yourself to figure it out. All right, that's the first video done.